Welcome back to another edition of Racing Rundown here on YouTube. I'm Eric DeCoster. In this Kentucky Derby profile, we'll be taking a look at Simplification, a horse who has danced all the dances down at Gulfstream Park. Personal favorite of mine. I just love his talent and his ability. I don't know how he'll fare in the Derby, and that's true. That's not me sugarcoating it. I really have no idea how he's going to perform, but he's a talented racehorse, and we'll find out why right here. 3 for 7 lifetime. He's only been off the board once. That was his debut. He danced some tough dances. Not only did he dance all the dances, but he danced some tough dances down in Florida this year, running against some well-regarded horses for this year's Kentucky Derby, and it was successful at times. 2 for 4 this year. What we're going to do is we're going to watch his 4 races from 2022. He was a very impressive 3-year-old. Only won one start though out of 3, and that was his maiden win. He had excuses in the start right after that. And just all in all, those races don't tell me much. Whereas the 4 this year, each race tells me something. And we're going to start here with the Mucho Macho Man now in progress. This is on January 1st. Not an official Kentucky Derby points race, but as you can see, there's a handful of names in here that appeared in other Kentucky Derby preps around the country. And Simplification has gone to the lead and is going wire to wire right now, and he does it very impressively, rattling off some fractions that are on the quicker side. But all in all, this was a very strong, comfortable win. Kind of showed what he did on debut, which he won by almost 17 lengths, going wire to wire. At this point, it just looks like he has pure speed to burn, and that's kind of what we all thought from this. But nevertheless, you liked his ability because he's powering through the line. Didn't beat much in this spot. I do say that as if the runner up in their strike hard, he ran okay in one of the Tampa preps. Didn't run too on the Florida Derby, and then further back in the field was Skippy Longstocking, who actually was in the Wood Memorial, and I believe ran third and could run in the Kentucky Derby if enough defections do come in, and he might run in the Preakness or the Belmont as well. So initially, it might have not been the best horses, but there's some okay form. They're definitely grade 2, grade 3 level kinds of horses, but promising given he was coming off of a loss into this spot. Now on to start number 2 of 2022, start number 5 all in all for Simplification. Obviously coming off that big win, there were a lot of hopes and expectations for him in this spot. He went off at 7-2, but there you see him, the 4 horse just missed the break completely. The complete opposite of what he wanted to do, because where was he in that debut? On the lead, and then a little bit of jostling right here, totally out of position. I had him in this race. I know a lot of other people that did, a lot of people expecting big things from him, and immediately you thought the race was over. Given this start, you hated to be in this position. Something he'd never done at all. On debut, he was further back, but he clearly kind of needed that race, and it was on the Tapeta course there at Gulfstream, whereas the other 3 races he'd been up there mixing it up on the lead. Now he has to come from well off the pace, and you kind of think his race is over. And what we learned from that first race is that he has an immense amount of talent. That first race being the Mucho Macho Man that we just watched before this. What we still had to figure out was what he could do if he was challenged on the lead against these kinds of horses. And we didn't get to figure that out because he broke so poorly. Now he finds himself close to the back. He's starting to move up though, which is really good. Meanwhile, some good horses in this race. Wide Barrio, who's sitting second, is your eventual winner here. He went on to win the Florida Derby. Mo Donegal, the eventual Wood Memorial winner, is inside of Simplification, who Simplification just moved past there in that grayish cap. And further back is Tiz the Bomb, who might not be a dirt horse, but he went on to win the Jeff Ruby Stakes and the John Battaglia Memorial before that. So excellent horses that Simplification is facing here. He is making a huge move, and you think maybe he's run his race at this point. Javier Castellano, who's aboard in this spot, is really getting after him hard, but he finds another gear right now, passing maybe some tiring runners in front of him, and White Barrio's gotten the split, and he's saying goodbye to the rest of them. But Simplification's coming along well here, finishing up on the wrong lead, which I don't love, but he's doing the job. He's ran a huge race given all the circumstances put against him, and that made you very confident heading into his next start, which in his case was the Fountain of Youth. And now on to the race that I think kind of stamps Simplification as a potential contender on this year's Kentucky Derby and Triple Crown Trail. You see him, the 2 horse there. We saw him go to the lead in the Mucho Macho Man. We saw him break slowly and be taken back and be able to make one big run in the Holy Bull. What's he going to do here in the Fountain of Youth? He's going to kind of split the difference, take back mid-pack. It seemed like Jose Ortiz, who picked up the mount from Javier Castellano here, decided to put him, let the break happen and play it from there. And that's what he did. The one Markamian went to the lead. He didn't want to go with him, so he's taking up mid-pack. But right now he's under a bit of a hold, right? I mean, he comes into trouble there, runs up on the heels of that gray horse in front of him, AP Secret. He has to check not sharply, but enough to where you're not feeling good. And might be pulling a little bit here. Either way, this has not been a great trip. You like that he's kind of rating again, but does he seem very comfortable? Initially, to me, no. But he's traveling now in between horses, which is tough. The pace is not all that quick. A half in 48 and 1/5, not going to do you any favors. The favorite is on the outside there, Emmanuel. He's making a big run, and as well as Grade 2 winner High Oak just inside of him. I mean, a lot's going on here, and I am going to skip ahead briefly. I don't want to show the horses that did go down in this race. We'll move ahead to the stretch. Simplification's made a big move there on the far turn, and he's swept to the lead on the wrong lead again. We'll touch a bit more on that once we're done with these replays, but drawing away clearly and impressively nonetheless, beating In Due Time, who ran second in this spot. I will say my biggest negative is what did he beat in this race as well. In Due Time came back to run okay in the Lexington. In his next start, Emmanuel, who ended up running fourth or fifth in this, can only muster third, well beaten by Smile Happy in Zandon in the Bluegrass Stakes. So not exceptional, not exceptional. And then the other horses that came back in this race, I don't know if there were any next out winners from the start. In fact, I'm pretty sure there weren't any. So that's concerning. But the way Simplification handled it was extremely impressive to me and gave me the indication, yeah, he can be a player because he's shown three different dimensions now in three different races. He's gone to the lead and he's won from there. He ran a huge race after botching the break and having to come from basically last in the Holy Bull. In the Fountain of Youth, he's able to sit mid-pack, encounter trouble every now and then, be comfortable in between horses, and then still finish off strongly and get to the wire first. Now we'll look into the Florida Derby, which definitely I was pretty certain he could win the Kentucky Derby after that Fountain of Youth win. The Florida Derby simmered those thoughts big time, though, with the loss you're about to see. So on to the Florida Derby now. A very salty field in here. You have Classic Causeway, the two horses, is a great coming off a Grade 2 win. You have Charge It, who's coming off a big maiden win. Wide Barrio, who beat Simplification in the Holy Bull, and they break well. And you see Classic Causeway, he's a tried and true front runner, goes out to the lead. And Simplification is the three horse here, and he's going to go up and challenge and press him. A bit different than we've seen in those last two races. We know two back, it was because he missed the break last time. It's kind of where Jose Ortiz decided to put him. Now he has him in the game early on, and I'm not sure if he thought there'd be a lack of pace early on, but nevertheless, he is right there sitting up, enforcing the pace alongside Classic Causeway. They went to quarter in 23 and 3, really not all that bad. I mean, that's not going to tell me that my horse doesn't have a chance on the lead. I thought the leaders were traveling rather comfortably up to this point. You'll see the half pop up, 47 and 1/5 seconds. That's quicker than the opening quarter. If you're going off those internal splits, that's going to be right up there with it's going to be to a point where I don't think it's going to burn out the speed, but I think it plays more favorably to those horses sitting second flight, like the 7 and the 6 in here, Wide Barrio and Charge It. And those are the two horses that run 1-2 in this spot. Simplification's made the lead. Classic Causeway is backing up. Just wasn't his day here. To the outside of Simplification, just a nose off of him is Papa Cap, who was multiple Grade 1 placed as a juvenile, ran second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. In addition to all that, and right now you're feeling okay. Jose Ortiz is yet to really ask Simplification. Once again, the fractions not bad for a horse that's either on or sitting very close to the lead, but it's going to play favorably to those directly in behind him. And here you see that coming to fruition. Wide Barrio's just made the lead. Simplification's fighting along the rail, but not getting the job done. Charge It's rallying after sitting off that pace ever so slightly into second. And I thought this was a credible race, but I obviously don't like the fact that Simplification lost. I thought he sat a good trip. I would have liked him to be a little bit further back, but at the end of the day, he had every chance to win it and got taken over down the lane by some class horses. And it makes you wonder, well, is he good? He's been beaten by Wide Barrio fair and square twice now. And there you see him galloping out. He's going evenly, I'd say, with the winner. Gallop out doesn't mean too much, of course, but it's not like he's out of gas from pressing the pace. He still has some horse left in the tank. So let's dive into Simplification a little bit less when it comes to the replays and the visual aspects and more the raw data and the numbers. He'll be ridden by Jose Ortiz, confirmed in the Kentucky Derby. Ortiz, he's come close. He was second on Good Magic in 2018 behind Justify. Rode a great race that day, and obviously he's an Eclipse Award-winning rider. Has led the nation and wins plenty of times, so you have to feel very confident in that. Trained by Antonio Sano, who's had one previous Kentucky Derby runner that was Gunnavera back in 2017, and they took very similar routes to the Kentucky Derby. Danced a lot of dances. Both won prep races as 3-year-olds at Gulfstream Park before losing the Florida Derby Gunnevera, I think, split the field in his Kentucky Derby, but went on to place in multiple Grade Ones. Like I think that was kind of his biggest talking point was the fact he could never actually win in Grade One. He could only place in them. But Simplification, I think, similar, maybe even a little better than Gunnevera on talent and adaptability. Is certainly his biggest pro, as you can see, and we'll dive into that in a second. Last three buyers, we'll dive into those more so as well when we talk about the figures. But a 91, a 96, and a 92 is very strong, very consistent. You wish that the 96 from the Fountain of Youth would have turned into something similar in the Florida Derby. Obviously, a 4-point regression isn't great, but we know he kind of ran two different races in both those spots, and I think that consistency is what ended up losing the Florida Derby for him. And when I say consistency, I mean being placed in the race in a similar position. He wasn't mid-pack. He was pressing a pace that was favorable more so to the stalkers than the speed, all the things like that. But let's dive into that adaptability. You saw it in every single race. There was something to take from every single one when it came to Simplification's running style. His ability to go to the lead and not look back showed that in the Mucho Macho Man, that first race we watched. Braking slowly and coming from behind in the Holy Bull. That was a 9-horse field. That's sizable enough, not 20 for sure, but 9 horse. Having to navigate between 8 other horses is very impressive. The Fountain of Youth being bottled up and behind rivals, having to sit in a true pack. That's one thing I do really like. If he does find himself mid pack or off the pace in the Kentucky Derby, he's not going to be phased by being around or in between horses because of that Fountain of Youth. Now the Florida Derby I thought was probably the weakest race he ran all year, but that being said, he was really pressing the pace, and I don't think that's where he's going to find himself in the Kentucky Derby. There's plenty of other horses that have more speed and will use it unless Jose Ortiz goes haywire. I think he's going to be closer to mid pack in this year's Derby, anywhere from 8th to 12th, realistically, kind of like we saw in the Fountain of Youth, and showing the same abilities he showed in the Holy Bull. They're going to harness his speed for sure, but that adaptability is going to take him a long way. Because let's say nobody does break, and all of a sudden Simplification finds himself a length in front, an eighth of a mile into the race. Well, Jose Ortiz can just put him on the lead and say, hey, we're fine here. We're going to do that, and we're going to take it and run with it. How about those figures? If you are a speed figures person, you'll love them. You live by them. Then Simplification is easily up there with you. Buyers are obviously good. He's posted 4 straight 90 or higher. 5 of his 7 career efforts, have been 90 or higher. I don't think there's anybody else in the field that can say that. I'm not positive if there's anybody that's posted 4 straight 90 or higher in this crop. Obviously, Taba has 200 pluses, which is more impressive than that, but he only has 2 races. But that overall consistency is huge. And by Brisnet standards, which is what I really like when it comes to figures, is Brisnet numbers, he has the second highest prime power among the field. And the prime power combines the speed figures, the connections, a ton of different factors, and throws it into a formula and spits it out. Is it always the most accurate thing? No, but it helps give a baseline. It doesn't. It's not truly indicative of talent, but when a horse like Simplification has the second highest in this year's field, and once again, this is a two metrics now hold him in very high regard from a numbers standpoint. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. The excuses for the losses, I think, are there. I'm not going to say the Florida Derby he had much of an excuse other than, once again, I'll say it again, that he was too close to the pace, but it wasn't overly detrimental. But the Holy Bull, really, he should be 3 for 4 this year, in my opinion. If he gets out of the gate in the Holy Bull and isn't in such a detrimental position, he probably wins that race. The cons, he didn't beat much in the Fountain of Youth, despite the less than ideal trip. He had to really navigate it, sure, but in due time didn't come back to run well in the Lexington, a race he should have won if he was actually Grade 1 caliber. And then further back was Emmanuel. He could only muster up a distant third in the Bluegrass. I mentioned Strike Hard and Skippy Longstocking from the Mucho Macho Man win, but once again, they're on the same level as In Due Time and Emmanuel, where they're just not Kentucky Derby caliber. He hasn't beaten Kentucky Derby caliber horses ever, and that's obviously not a good thing. His loss in the Florida Derby, as much as that excuse does maybe exist in your mind, it's not really there in mine. And I know a lot of people have said, well, he was too close to the pace. Yeah, he was, but he still should have put him away if he was talented enough. And once again, I just don't like that he's lost to White Barrio twice. And then he does have those subtle little quirks. It's not the greatest con, but he does finish on the wrong lead sometimes. He can break a bit slowly. If he does break slowly, could he find himself in the back 3 in the Kentucky Derby? I don't know if he's good enough to overcome that. He can overcome being 10th, 12th, maybe 15th. I know I said I think he'll be 8 to 12th. If he's like 15th, maybe he can overcome that. But if he breaks slowly again, that could do him in for sure. So something you have to weigh, of course, heading into this year's Kentucky Derby. All in all, I really like Simplification. As I said, I think he's a cool horse. very adaptable, and he makes for an exciting horse race. All you have to do is watch the Mucho Macho Man and Fountain of Youth wins to fully recognize that. But he can lose. He can lose, and he's been beaten by the same horse twice. One time he had a huge excuse, could have won without it. He didn't have that excuse so much so in the Florida Derby. But who knows? Maybe he can put it together. One other thing, he does have a really interesting every other pattern. I don't really buy into that, but it is worth noting. He lost his debut, won his second start, lost an allowance, won the Mucho Macho Man, lost the Holy Bull, won the Fountain of Youth, and then lost the Florida Derby. If he follows the pattern, he'll be winning the Kentucky Derby this first Saturday in May. I don't really buy it, but hey, if that's a pattern you like to dive into and fully run with, then run with it, because it is there with simplification more so than anybody else in this year's Kentucky Derby. That's all I have for you guys on this profile. We will see you next time here on Racing Rundown.